My name is Sang-il Park, and today I will be discussing our study on endovascular treatment with targeted embolization of carbonosinus AVF. This is a single-center study conducted at Assam Medical Center. Carbonosinus are abnormal connection between the arteries and veins in the carbonosinus region, which can present with a variety of symptoms such as diplopia, proptosis, or even cranial palsy. There are various treatment options, but endovascular therapy, specifically embolization, remain the primary approach. According to previous study, the angiographic cure rate after EVT was reported to be 17 to 100%. Also, transvenous embolization of the whole affected sinus is typically performed. It can result in the disturbance of normal venous drainage or permanent cranial palsy. Optimal treatment standards include transvenous embolization, ideally focusing exclusively on the fistulous point, and the occlusion of a specific fistula has garnered attention for its precision and efficacy. The main goal of our study was to assess the feasibility, efficacy, and safety of targeted embolization for carbonosinus AVF. In this study, we include patients aged 18 and older with confirmed carbonosinus AVF via six-vessel angiography. They all underwent transvenous or transarterial embolization. Patients were excluded if they had incomplete clinical or imaging data or had received gamma knife treatment. Targeted embolization refers to procedure in which an embolic agent is specifically directed toward the intended targeted area based on predefined imaging and anatomical criteria. This was intended to preserve the anatomical and functional integrity of the cavernous sinus, selectively occluding the pathological arteriovenous connection within the cavernous sinus. If access to the fistula site failed, or if there was a risk of shunt redirection due to incomplete occlusion, we proceed with non-targeted embolization. This approach occludes the fistula and normal cavernous sinus, often result in the occlusion of the entire ipsilateral cavernous sinus. The main objective upon reaching the fistula was performing a targeted embolization to occlude the shunt pouch using coil while sparing the cavernous sinus lumen. Here, we can see an example of a patient in his 60s underwent targeted embolization of cavernous sinus AVF after presenting with chemosis and diplopia. Bilateral ECA angiography leaving an arterial venous shunt with cortical flux in the right cavernous sinus. Volume rendered and source fusion imaging from three-dimensional rotational angiographies identifying two distinct fistula located anatomically anteromedially and posteromedially within the cavernous sinus. Transvenous coil embolization was selectively performed on each shunt pouch, achieving complete shunt occlusion. Clinical symptoms were divided into four categories: orbital, cavernous, ocular, and cerebral pattern. We include two angiography categories. First, according to SUS classification, there are three types: proliferative type, restricted type, and late restricted type. The second one was divided into type of fistula according to the distribution. This study included 198 patients with cavernous AVF with a mean age of 59 years. The most common symptom pattern was orbital, followed by cavernous, ocular, and cerebral pattern. Regarding unusual findings, the restrict type was the most prevalent at 54%, followed by proliferated and late restrictive type. Focal fistula were more common than diffuse one. Curative treatment was given to 85.4% of patients with 94 receiving targeted embolization and 75 non-targeted. Patients with orbital and cavernous symptoms were more likely to receive curative treatment. For embolization, transvenous coil embolization was the predominant method in the curative group, while transarterial PVA embolization was more common in the palliative group. Success rate after EVT were highest in the targeted group compared to non-targeted and palliative. The targeted group also had a lower complication rate, mainly transient cranial palsy, compared to 9.3% in the non-targeted group. Symptom improvement was seen in 91.4% of patients, significantly higher in the targeted group. Retreatment rates were also lower in the targeted group compared to non-targeted and palliative group. No serious complications like ICH or mortality were observed. Excessive transvenous coil packing in the cavernous sinus can lead to cranial palsies occurring in approximately 11 to 15% of cases where the entire sinus is packed. In some cases, this can result in permanent damage. Although the exact mechanisms are not understood, it's believed that the compression of adjacent cranial nerve by the packed coils along with thrombosis could be responsible for these complications. Previous reports on targeted embolization of cavernous sinus dural AVF found that 25% of patients experienced transient obtuse nerve palsy, while those who had entire sinus packing faced the same percent of permanent cranial palsy. In our study, cranial nerve palsy occurred in 8% of patients who underwent non-targeted embolization, which was significantly higher than in the targeted embolization group, where the rate was only 2.1%. To reduce this risk, it's suggested to minimize the use of coils when occluding the shunt. Historically, PVA particle embolization has not been considered a curative treatment, as recanalization is often reported after the procedure. However, even a partial reduction in shunt flow can significantly improve symptoms, allowing for targeted embolization in future stages. In our study, PVA particles were used as a palliative treatment, particularly in patients with intestine and diffuse fistulas. The reason behind the approach is that for diffuse cavernous dural AVF, complete shunt occlusion often require full occlusion of the cavernous sinus. Our findings show that this method resulted in complete shunt occlusion in 69% of cases, potentially facilitating shunt maturation and spontaneous closure. In addition, palliative embolization was highly effective in revealing symptoms in 89.7% of patients, providing adequate time for later targeted embolization. Based on our treatment outcomes, we developed a management strategy for carbon science durable web. For patients with mild symptoms, we recommend regular monitoring. However, for those with intolerable symptoms or aggressive angiographic features such as cortical reflux, treatment is necessary. In case of diffuse shunt tie, we recommend palliative embolization as curative embolization would require occluding the entire cavern sinus, which is non-targeted. The primary consideration should be targeted embolization. If the fistula is not accessible, transarterial palliative embolization can be performed to reduce shunt flow and possibly induce spontaneous occlusion. If the shunt remained, options include repeated palliative embolization, curative embolization, or gamma knife therapy. Finally, if targeted embolization failed to occlude the shunt, palliative embolization may be preferred over non-targeted embolization unless there is significant cortical or ophthalmic reflux that persistent. This study had several limitations. First, its retrospective design may have led to a selection bias. A comparison of outcomes across treatment groups may be inappropriate because of different characteristics, such as greater proportion of focal and discrete fistulas in the targeted embolization group. This warrant cautious interpretations of the results. Second, the single-center design and limited number of patients and operators may restrict the generalizability of the result, despite the inclusion of a relatively large sample size compared to prior research. Third, gamma knife treatment was not included in the treatment modality assessed in our study. Finally, fistula time assessment is subjective and lacks standard criteria and dependence on 2D imaging before 2012 may future compromise the accurate evaluation of fistula. In conclusion, our study demonstrated that targeted embolization is a highly effective and safe treatment for Camel-Sinus durable. It offers precious control, reducing the risk of complication while maintaining high success rate. We recommend its use in cases where the fistula's point can be clearly defined and targeted. Thank you for your attention.